Hi, this is Claudia Filos, and I'm here today with my colleagues at CHS, Professor Leonard Muellner, Gregory Nagy, Douglas Frame, and Ali Marbury. Thanks so much for joining us. And so today we're going to pick up where we left off. We're reading the Odyssey, and sort of our goal is to think about the poetry of grammar and the grammar of poetry as we go through this. And I know, Greg, you've talked about that phrase, the poetry of grammar and the grammar of poetry, and about how your teacher, Jakobson, is someone who had looked into those ideas. So,
and in fact, not just my teacher, but Doug's teacher and Lenny's teacher as well.
Together.
We all went together on the number 68 bus.
Yes.
On Massachusetts Avenue, we would go from Harvard Square to MIT, where he gave his lectures.
Number 364, room 927, or something. Don't you remember?
Whatever.
Yeah, numbers.
Yes, that's typical MIT. But Jakobson at that point was teaching no longer at Harvard, but MIT. So that's why we have to hop the bus each time.
Wonderful. So exactly. So we're going to kind of keep those beautiful ideas in mind as we read, and as usual, we'll just go around the table. So maybe Lenny, would you like to start us off at line 28, and just do whatever chunk feels good?
All right. Let's see. Line 28. All right. Here, I'll do line 28.
Tοῖσι.
Tοῖσι μύθων ἔρχε, πατὴρ ἀνδρῶν θεօν, μνήσατο γαρ κατὰ θυμὸν ἀμύμονος Αἰγίσθοιο. Τοῖν Ἀγαμεμνονίδης τηλεκλυτὸς ἔκταν Ωρέστης, τοῦ ἐπιμνησθεὶς ἀθανάτοισι μετηύδα. I'm stopping there.
So what's jumping out at you?
Say it again.
What's jumping at
What's
you?
jumping out at
What's
me?
jumping out at you in those lines? What stands out for you?
There's this famous problem about ἀμύμονος Αἰγίσθοιο.
How do you translate it?
Yes. So this word is problematic in its derivation and its usage, but the standard translation is blameless, and this doesn't seem to be blameless.
Okay, actually, yeah, I forgot. Can you just translate that whole bit for us, too?
Okay. So the father of gods and men began mythoi with them or for them. Okay.
And how do you translate mythoi?
So let's say speech acts. Okay.
Or how about words that are spoken for the record?
Yes. Okay. Because he had in mind in his thumos, he remembered in his thumos maybe, ἀμύμονος blameless this, whom the son of Agamemnon, ォρέστης, the far-famed son of Agamemnon, ォρέστης had killed. Keeping him in mind, he spoke words among the immortals. Okay, so the epei is the unmarked form of speech word. Okay.
Unmarked as opposed to what?
To mythoi.
Yeah.
Okay. So mythoi can be epei, but not all epei are mythoi.
And what Lenny just said is based on the research of Richard P. Martin, especially his 1989 book, The Language of Heroes, where Richard showed that mythoi, unlike mythoi in Homeric mythoi, unlike mythoi in later Greek literature, really means words that are for the record, that are universally applicable, and therefore just the opposite of the way we use myths.
Yes.
Because for us, myths are not to be trusted.
Yes. But it also means, in this context, words that have consequences in action, right?
Yeah.
And that involve decision making, like the director's meeting this morning.
So your translation speech act, right?
Yeah.
That's the notion of a speech act.
Yeah,
It's,
exactly. So it's language
has
that
action attached to it.
That has action attached to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you by saying something are doing something.
Yeah.
Like at a wedding, if you say "I do," you're not just saying something, you're doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if I say it in another context, it's just saying something.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, and so earlier you were pointing us towards this idea of blameless.
Right.
That's an interesting word in this context.
There's also πατὴρ ἀνδρῶν θεοῦνται, which I think we should say something about too. No, maybe before that.
Sure. Father of gods and men.
Father of gods and men, because it's not the biological father, right? It's a patriarch father, right? In that sense, he's their πατὴρ. Okay, he's the person with the patriarch's power over them.
As Tennessee, if this were a Tennessee Williams play,
right,
he would be Big Daddy.
Yes. He is.
Okay, and so it's in that context that he's speaking these mythoi. Is that what you're having us think about, Lenny?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's another example of this.
Good point, Claudia. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But ἀμύμονος, there's another example of exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
In Book 11 of the Odyssey.
Right, about another horrible person.
That's right.
Salmonius.
Who
gets thunderbolted and such so bad.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it doesn't happen in Homer. That's the interesting thing. You have to go to Ɂησία to find out all about this Salmonius, who rivaled the gods by, let's see, what did he do? He tied drums, sort of kettle drums, to the back of his chariot. And that was the thunder when he drove his chariot. And he tossed firebrands, and that was the lightning.
It's like after a wedding and you're tying tin cans to your car, right?
Right. So anyway, this character is just mentioned in the catalog of heroines in Book 11 of the Odyssey with the epithet ἀμύμονος. I don't think I'll say any more about it, but you're really supposed to understand that this character is not ἀμύμονος. Because he correlates to, somebody else. There's another genealogy that matches up with this genealogy, and you're able to put two and two together if you realize that, no, Salmonius is not ἀμύμονος. I don't know how that helps here, because this one is still just puzzling to me. I can't come up with any rhyme or reason.
So, in other words, you think that that's a different Salmonius? The one in Odyssey 11 is not the exemplar of bad behavior?
Yeah, no, he is an exemplar of bad behavior, but attention isn't drawn to it there. But,
as it is here.
Hang on. The bad behavior is sort of made a point of. Here, that's the whole issue.
He's the focus because he did something dumb.
Yeah. Well, if we ever get to Book 11, maybe this will all become a little clearer.
We will.
All right.
We're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
But I observed that if let's say we were conducting a seminar, all of us here, on the life and times of Milman Parry and Milman Parry's study of epithets. In his original work, Parry used the distinction general versus particularized epithets.
Right.
And the idea would be that sometimes an adjective like ἀμύμονος, which so far we've been translating as blameless, that adjectives like that can be used in general context before you start lowering the boom on somebody and saying, well, this was bad or good. And then there are other situations where you can use something where you've already making up your mind. So in the same metrical position, you could have said, and actually this happens elsewhere in the Odyssey, ἀνάλκηδος Αἰγίσθοιο, which would mean feckless Aegisthus, cowardly Aegisthus. To put it more generally, bad Aegisthus, whereas this seems to be good Aegisthus.
Or at least it's generic Aegisthus.
It's just Aegisthus. I think that's
what
you're
Parry
getting at.
Yes, that's what Parry would say, is that this is a generalized epithet.
Yeah.
But that said,
He didn't even know about the Salmonius example. He doesn't have it in his list.
Well, I think that's because.
I
won't give reasons.
He just missed it, but I think it supports his case because it's not just one example, one person.
Of a context where you expect a negative, like anarchidos,
yes,
which would be mechanically just as possible here as ἀμύμονος, but you don't get it. Instead, you start with this more general thing, which doesn't have any negative connotations. One thing I would add, though, is that when we say in English blameless, we're already thinking of moral behavior.
This is important.
And I think if you look at the whole range of this word, it could just as easily apply to your favorite sheep on the farm.
Without a defect,
right. The best sheep that you have, and the kind that you want to keep while you send the others to slaughterhouses. But in the mentality of ancient Greek sacrifice, it's precisely the animal that you really treasure that is really perfect.
Because there's no blemishes.
There's no blemishes.
And that's physical.
And that's what it literally means. That's physically, blemishless.
So faultless, in a way, is better than blameless.
I think faultless is beautiful.
Yes.
Because the idea is this guy may have been very bad, but he was very good looking.
Yes. Like all people.
Well, like most.
Exactly. The ones who are ugly are peculiar.
Yeah.
But the other word that you use for the sacrificial animal is teleios, which means that have reached their telos in terms of growth and beauty.
Which sometimes people translate as perfect, which makes us very nervous. I mean, in a way, this is the perfect animal. I love this animal so much. I don't want to give this one up. That's the one you have to sacrifice. That's the mentality of sacrifice.
And I mean, that's sort of the mentality of how you choose your men for things like ambush, right? You choose the best men.
Oh yeah.
And they're the ones who get slaughtered over and over again in the Odyssey during that portion. He's going on this big mission and he chooses his best men and they all die, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So Ali, can I just invite you, please, at any point to raise a question if something isn't clear, or to add a comment or additional thought, okay?
Okay.
Okay, good.
Ali is here to keep us honest.
Absolutely. So did you have anything else in these lines, Letty, that you want to share, or anyone?
Let's see. There's the stuff about ォρέστης, right? Who's tηλεκλυτος in this context, which reminds one of Telemachos, right? In a certain sense, right? He's
Telemachus
is for whom he is a model, right?
Mm-hmm. He's certainly set up as a model for Telemachus.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
very
it looks
good.
like a nice sort of. That's a particularized epithet, tηλεκλυτος, right?
Yes. And it's not that I think the three of us would want to use the distinction between generalized and particularized quite the way that Perry was using it. Perry was using it at a time when he had not yet even gone to former Yugoslavia to study how a living oral tradition works.
Right.
He had all sorts of very intuitive things to say about how a system of poetic language works, and he understood, even before doing field work, how this kind of language, which he called in his wonderfully French way, Homeric diction, how Homeric diction works.
Yeah.
And I love the word diction because it's a little bit mystical, but it certainly isn't everyday language.
Yes.
It's diction.
And it constitutes it as a system in a way.
Yeah.
Which is the most important thing, I think.
I like that point about tηλεκλυτος. That never occurred to me.
That could go into our commentary. Hey, Lenny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Telemachos, tηλεκλυτος.
There's another thing that's interesting, and that is you have a little mini ring composition here. It starts out with mνήσατο, and it tells us what he had in mind, and then it says τοῦ ἐπιμνησθεὶς. So the second time around you use the compound, which is sort of the reverse of the way it usually works, right? You usually have the compound word first and then the simplex afterwards, right? That's interesting, but it's not necessary. I mean,
then on the other hand,
but it's a kind of a variatio, right?
And it's almost like the ἐπί is like emphasizing that it's happened, and I'm going to mention again that it happened.
Yes, but it also, yeah, in a sense, but it also, I think the ἐπί in these compounds also means remembering in response to it.
Yeah.
As a responsive thing, right? It's more expressive about how he's thinking about it, right? That's before the
beautiful.
speech stuff. Okay, somebody else.
Great. So, Greg, can you pick up from there? With
All right.
line 32?
And this time, I'm going to try not to just keep on going where nobody tackles me and say, "All right, Greg, you stop right now." So let's see how far.
The first period I see is like 9 lines later.
Oh, God.
That'll take up the rest of the hour.
And we should quickly say to our friendly readers out there that the way we use the word period is the Greek way, which is when you come full circle in a chain of thought. And so it's like starting at a starting point and running all the way around a stadium and going back to where your starting point was.
So like the thing I just read.
Like the ray composition.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if I can stop earlier. But here goes.
We should get out our ruler and round the knuckles and you go further.
That's right. So, pόποι, 瘀ον θεοὺς βροτοὶ αιτιόωνται, αίμεων φάση κακέμεναι, oi σφαίσιν ατασταλιάσι hypermoron alge εχούσιν, ως kai nun Αἰγίσθος hypermoron Ατρεΐδαο, gem alhon nesteen, don ἔκταν noste santa, eidos ἀιπινολέθρον, ἐπέ προχoi ἐπον ήμεής, Hermeian pemsantes euskopon argei pontein, metautontein maternas astai akoitin. I think we'll stop there. Okay, so, O ye gods. Some people in the ancient world thought that this was a way of invoking gods in a pre-Hellenic language. And the Dryopians, they say, but thanks a lot. Who are the Dryopians? But anyway, it's a nice way to say, oh God, how mortals blame us, the gods. And the day, which I haven't translated, is according to pragmatics, which is a form of linguistics. That particle means something like, it's as if I just learned this for the first time. Oh, what a surprise. How the gods blame us, how the mortals blame us, the gods. And what's interesting is that I use the word blame, but aĩtioōnται means consider to be guilty, rule to be guilty. And aïtios means guilty or responsible. But get this, aïtia means cause.
So it's the thing responsible.
Yeah. So, and what's nice about this is we see in the next sentence, ήμεών φάση κακέμεναι, because they say that bad things come from us, or the kaiauto, but they themselves, by their own deeds of recklessness, and going above and beyond what is fated, receive and then have pains. So this is just the opposite of what we read, or will read, depending on whether you've read the Iliad, the first few lines of the Iliad, where we hear, Dios deteleia to boule, and the will of Zeus was accomplished. So in the Iliad, it seems to be a case where everything that happens in the Iliad is the will of Zeus. Right. Now here's Zeus himself being quoted saying, well, it's not my will, and it's not the will of the gods. They get themselves into trouble, and then they turn around and hold us accountable.
Very nice.
And so what do we make of this? Does this mean that there are two different people composing the Iliad and Odyssey with two different worldviews? I've read so much on that, where people say that I'm stunned into indifference.
Yes.
But clearly, to me at least, and I think my friends join me in this, the Iliad and the Odyssey are often two sides of the same coin. And it's two sides of the Greek personality, two sides of the way you look at things, and these are extreme views that are not really followed. In this case, by the Odyssey, because it turns out there are all sorts of things that are willed by the gods, and there are all sorts of things where
and
it's
Jim
not
Marx
the
wrote a whole book saying you do have a Dios in the Odyssey.
Fine.
Yeah.
No skin off my back.
And the two sides of the same coin, let's go back to the point that we talked about earlier about algae.
Oh, yes.
Which is, of course, in the proem to the Iliad.
Similar expression, right?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And here it's repeated, right? We've had it already earlier, but when it comes back here in the context of, well, a contrast with the Dios Boule in the Iliad, and then Zeus sort of turning the coin over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another.
I mean, it's a similar thing. It's the same kind of context you have in the poem as here. That is, the poem is exculpating the hero for the death of his companions, right? It was their own mistake, right? And that's what you invoke.
And instead of saying exculpate, let's say excuse, because excusare is from causam. So that's the Latin way of saying what we're talking about.
He wasn't the antios.
No, I'm not guilty. I'm not responsible.
Yeah, guilty in the sense of responsible.
Responsible.
Not in the sense of,
I almost said guilty. Well, I did say guilty. I did say guilty.
We want to avoid that, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Don't you?
Yeah, don't do that, Greg. All right. So one other point I want to make about what we just read is that atastalie in the singular means recklessness.
Right.
But here, as in many other cases, when you take an abstract noun, you put it in the plural, then it becomes specific, concrete instances of that abstract thing. So if the singular, atastalie, is recklessness, then atastalii, the plural, is acts of recklessness. So it's specific instantiations of reckless acts. So it from abstract, concrete. Abstract singular, concrete plural. Then this is nice. Hypermoron is technically above and beyond what is fated, what is the slice of life. And in Homeric poetry, there are things that happen that are judged to be hypermoron. Hey, this happened and it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't fated.
Right.
And then there are other things that are katamoiran, which is according to what is fated. So there are distinctions made in the narrative between what is fated and what is not fated. And this is tricky again. There's a lot of, I almost want to say, theology going on here. And sometimes people talk about theodicy, which is, I think, a very unfortunate term. It's Theodicy, which is like God, gods, and decay, justice. But theodicy in English sounds just like the Odyssey.
Yes.
So it's like in French where the word for grammar sounds very much like grandmother. So anyway, it be still my heart. But we're almost done here. And then so also now, even now, Aegisthus, above and beyond what was fated, or if you want to say contradictory to fate, went ahead and married, and there could be other ways of saying this, like had sexual intercourse with, and I'm thinking of the F word. Yeah. In modern Greek, you have to be careful how you use this word because it does have that meaning. It doesn't mean marry unless you use a compound. It means to, Yeah. Anyway, let's just say he had sex with.
Okay.
I'd like that with the wooed wife the wooed bedmate of the son of Atreus. And when you say son of Atreus by default, as Doug and Lenny have studied this, it's always Agamemnon, and very, very seldom, I shouldn't have said always, it's almost always Agamemnon, very, very seldom Menelaus. So also now, Aegisthus, above and beyond what is fated, had sex with the lawfully wedded wife of the son of Atreus. And I say lawfully wedded wife, I mean, you know, it's, mnήσatο is somebody who has been duly courted, where you have done all the proper ritual procedures in getting hooked up to, married to a woman.
Right.
And here comes τὸν ἔκταν, and he killed him as he achieved his homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a contradiction in terms that I want to linger on. And if it's all right, Claudia, I would like to cede to my dear colleague Doug, who should be the person who comments on the moment when Agamemnon was killed by Aegisthus, that he was achieving a nostos. So Doug, what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting because nostos implies a successful nostos, the word all by itself. And when heroes die before they return, the way the Odyssey says that is they die en nosto, in their homecoming, during their homecoming. But this is goes a little beyond that. This is looks like having achieved his nostos. In other words, taking it just in the physical sense of making it to dry land.
And what's really fun for me, as Doug and Lenny know, I'm working on a project where elsewhere in the Odyssey, there's a distinction made between success and failure in parts of the homecoming voyage of Agamemnon.
Mm-hmm.
So in later parts of the Odyssey, it is said that actually Agamemnon was successful in the sea voyage part of his process of homecoming, but then he messed up as soon as he touched land, and that's when everything went wrong. So success while sailing on the sea, and then failure after landing and trying to make his way back home. So it's a very complex story.
It is, and the Odyssey, that passage I referred to before in Odyssey 4. This is the old man of the sea telling Menelaus, Agamemnon's brother, things that he'd rather not hear. The situation in Odyssey 4 is that Menelaus himself is trying to achieve his nostos, but the winds are against him, and he's been away for 8 years already anyway.
Yeah.
And things have gone badly, and he gets the advice to trap the old man of the sea, a prophet, who will tell him how to achieve his own return. But in the process, the old man of the sea also says only 2 heroes died en nosto, and one of them is Ajax, the young bragger, the bragger, right. And he clearly dies. He also actually escapes the sea.
Yeah.
And then he brags that he did it all on his own. And Poseidon does. You see, Athena caused the storm, and he escapes. And then he brags that he did it all on his own. And Poseidon doesn't like that. And so Poseidon breaks off the cliff that he's standing on, and back into the sea he goes. So, but the parallelism between that and Agamemnon is interesting, because only 2, and Agamemnon is the second that the old man of the sea talks about. So did they have a nostos? Didn't they have a nostos? What is a nostos? I mean, it's all a bit of a problematic, you can tell, just to the poem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this form, it's an aorist participle. So it's sort of ambiguous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to mean that it's finished.
It could be in process.
Yeah.
The aorist usually you think of as single act, but I don't know.
Well,
It means that it's not defined, right?
I agree with both Doug and Lenny. It's not a problem because if we go back to the terminology we learned from our teacher Jakobson, he talked about marked and unmarked members of an opposition. And if you had a so-called present participle here, then you'd know that it's something that something is in progress.
If it were perfect, you would know that it was over.
But when it's aorist, it's unmarked.
Unmarked. Okay. So in a sense, it's like the en nosto.
I think so.
It's just in the process.
I think it's no problem.
Oh, well, I would prefer that because I think that the point is that Agamemnon does not have a nostos. He doesn't make it.
It's just that the Greek isn't underlining that he was trying to do it. It just says in his nostos. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really interesting the division between the getting across the sea and then getting home, because the really hard part is to get across the sea, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's so
and in the
difficult.
case of both of these characters, both the bad Ajax and Agamemnon, it's when they've done the hard part that they get killed.
They messed up. Yeah, that's the point.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
And now something else that I used to worry to death about, which is that in that prophecy that Doug is talking about, where it's Proteus, the Protean person, sometimes called the old man of the sea, and the word man is misleading because he is definitely no man.
No, it's a
But it's Geron. It's Halios Geron.
Yeah, but I would say that's oldster.
Sure. No, I agree.
There's something more about it.
I just wanted to make clear that that translation does come from.
Oh yes. Yeah. But I'm just saying that the English over translates. But anyway, this Proteus character not only tells Menelaus that his brother is dead, just like Ajax was also dead, but Proteus also says, you, Menelaus, will be immortalized after death. Or it even makes it sound as if, the prophecy makes it sound as if Menelaus didn't even have to die.
Right.
And the reason this bothered me is it's the only place in all of Homeric poetry where a hero gets brought back to life after death, or is simply immortal, or whatever. But then I say to myself, it's not happening in the narrative. It's not Homeric poetry that's saying this happens. It's an embedded prophecy, and therefore there's sort of one step away from what Homeric authentication would be. So anyway, that's for the record, and in our commentary, I really want to say that.
Okay, cool.
And the reason that he gets immortalized is that he's married to Helen.
That's
Exactly.
Right. That's right. It's not his own grave.
That's right.
And Helen is the ticket
Yes.
for his immortalization,
Yes.
or his immortality. And what's nice about it is, if she's a ticket for that, you better get her from Troy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because otherwise it'll be Alexander, aka Paris, who gets the privilege.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not done.
No.
Almost done. So then we read, and I translate. This is Aegisthus. We've just heard that he killed Agamemnon in the process of Agamemnon's nostos. He, Aegisthus, knowing full well his own doom. In other words, surely he must have known that if he does that, he's going to get killed himself, knowing his sheer destruction. And I translate ἀτρεΐδαο as sheer because the etymology of ἀνδρῶν, which is destruction, is cognate with a Hittite verb which means throw somebody off a cliff.
Right.
So,
And we've seen this already, right? We talked
did
about
it.
it.
Yeah, we had it.
oh, we had it already.
But
Right.
it's not Agamemnon who's the Eidos. It's
It's
Odysseus.
just this, right.
I hope I did I misspeak?
You said Agamemnon. Right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
Well, I understood just this, but
I had meant just this, but
Yes.
thank you.
I think you did anyway. Maybe I misheard.
It doesn't matter. No, we clarified. So anyway, he just this, knowing full well his own sheer destruction, because that's we gods, because remember it's still Zeus talking.
Right.
We told them. We told them.
We told them beforehand.
We told them beforehand, bro.
Yeah.
We told them beforehand, having sent Hermes, the one who has very good vision, very good sighting powers, the one who, I would like to translate, the one who kills by way of light and life, or something like that.
Okay, so tell us about that.
Is the killer of the monster Argos. But anyway, this is a, shall we say, opaque epithet. But I could justify both translations. The one who kills by way of light and life, and the one who kills the monster Argos. And I think in the myth you can see that it's both.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Greg?
The best way to talk about it is to think of the old Irish hero Cuchulainn, whose name means the dog of Chulam. And just to do the myth very quickly, I can do it in 30 seconds. There's a horrible hound who ravages the countryside, owned by a smith called Chulam. And this Irish hero, whose original name is Shetanta, which means he of the crossroads, kills the dog, kills the hound, and so the smith who owns the hound says, "You killed my dog. As compensation, you have to be called the dog of Chulam," which is the name of the smith. Okay? So this way, the killer of the monster has the same name as the monster.
We've seen
And so that's what happens with Hermes. Hermes kills the hundred-eyed monster called Argos, who is the embodiment of light and life, and who lives in a place called Argos, which means the land of light and life, or the zone of light and life. So it's a beautiful myth where in the primal battle between monster killer and monster, both have the same name. And even the way you kill the monster has to do with the characteristics of the monster, which is having bright eyes, which are metaphorized as thunder and lightning, and light and life, if I can say. And of course, I'm inspired by Doug Frame's beautiful analysis of the whole mythological complex of returning to light and life, and what the zone is that you return to. And yeah, sure, Argos is a real place, but it's also a ritual place, and the ritual will mythologize itself as a land of light and life. And there's so many other, like Pylos itself is a place, but it's also a mythological marker for an entry into a hole that leads to, again, the other side, where you emerge to light and life.
Beautiful. So, so does that take us to the end of the passage?
No. One line to go.
One line. Okay, here we go. And so, what did we tell this guy? Not to kill him, mate aŭtōn ktēne, and not to woo his bedmate.
Seduce.
I want to say woo in the sense of sweet talk.
Okay.
And by the way, this is the time to say, how do you say propose in archaic Latin?
This is the time for that conversation. I agree.
Well, let me tell you. So the way to say it is mentionem facio de puella. I make a mention about a girl, and so who do you propose to? Well, you propose to the father, of course.
And that's what you say in an indirect way.
And that's what you say indirectly. But then here's a nastier way of saying it. We have the word proposal. We also have in English the word proposition.
Yes.
And so that's what Lenny is pushing me towards, is to say that he was propositioning the wife, not proposing to her.
Yes.
Okay.
She was already a wife, after all.
Yeah. It's not
And
right.
we just had ἀνδρῶν used of her, right?
Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned Latin,
Yes. Go for it. Well, it's a cognate. It's fair to mention. We can mention Latin anytime we want.
Exactly.
so do your expression again. It's mentionem facere de
Puella.
puella. To hit on somebody is mentionem facere de stupro.
Oh yes. Oh beautiful. Oh yes.
This is
And
painful.
stuprum is very bad.
Stuprum is illicit.
It is the nasty.
Yes, and that's actually, you check your Oxford Latin Dictionary under stuprum, you'll find that.
Well, I don't think the Oxford Latin Dictionary will say the nasty.
So that's
but-
the proposition.
Oh, no, but
That's
it
the
has all the
proposal.
idioms. That is an
So
idiom.
that's the
idiom.
proposition.
Yeah, and my translation for the idiom is to hit on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is very primal. Okay, I'm done.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much. So, Doug, I think we have time to have you read a little bit for us. Do you mind?
Okay. I just wanted to comment on
please.
one little thing in the lines that Greg just did, and that is the position of the word ዄμεῖς at the end of the line. This is
Hey, so you're at line 37, right?
line 37, and this is again a gist. This is the subject here, right? Knowing his destruction, because we had told him before. And it's a small point, but emphatic places in the line, beginning of the line, end of the line, in particular. Let's just leave it at that.
Right.
So it's
Nice.
we told him.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Gods, right?
We gods,
Yeah.
right?
We gods.
And it's Hermes who represents them, right?
Yes, right. He's their messenger.
Exactly.
Well, he's also there. That's what he does.
Let's see. Now, can I do my part here? Excuse me. Ekkar or Ωρέστα ότισις έσσεται Ατρεΐδαο. Hópotan hebe se te kahes himeritai aies. Hosefat hermeas. Alufrenas Aĩgísthoio peth agatha froneon. Nun dathro apant. Oops. Oh, it's a part of the same line. Apatisen. I was going to say that line is missing something, but it's down below. Apatisen. So, well, this is the what Hermes told him, right? Told Aegisthus that there would be revenge, retribution from Orestes, the son of Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. Whenever he should reach his maturity, his hebe, and desire, have a longing for his native land, his land. So Hermes spoke, but he, even though he was kindly disposed, well-meaning, he was not able to persuade the mind of Aegisthus. And now he, Aegisthus, has paid the price for everything.
Nice.
Now, the things in this, I think the main thing to talk about is the parallel between Orestes and Telemachus, because the Odyssey keeps that in front of you, right from the start. Here we are at the start of the poem. This is how you're supposed to think of not just Telemachus, but also Odysseus. Why does Odysseus return the way he does? In other words, telling nobody that he's back. it's the contrast with the way Agamemnon did it. And if you think, well, the best way to keep that in mind is to think of Aeschylus and the Oresteia.
No,
Really? Right. The opening of the Oresteia when Agamemnon returns, close to the beginning anyway, and the red carpet is rolled out, and he's just, clueless as to what's going on. So that's the contrast. And then for Telemachus is sort of nowhere at the beginning of the poem, in the sense that his father has been away all this time. His mother hasn't remarried, but maybe she will, and the suitors aren't very nice to Telemachus either. So the example of Orestes is presented, almost immediately. Here's somebody who, in Telemachus' situation, who I don't know, was successful. Let's put it that way. Well, it's a different story, but it's a parallel story. I mean, it's not revenge in the same sense, because Odysseus is not going to have the same fate as Agamemnon. But Telemachus is still in Orestes' situation that he needs to pay something back to the suitors. Okay, I didn't express that all that well, but it's
very
okay. So
convincing.
That's what I see in these lines. Let's see. I mean, all that's made clear before we, even meet Telemachus. We've got the paradigm of Agamemnon and Orestes in mind. So this just goes on. I mean, let's think of other places, like in the underworld, when in Book 11 in the Odyssey, when one of the, I think Agamemnon actually takes Odysseus aside a bit and warns him, don't return the way I did. I mean, this example keeps coming back. And then at the end of the poem, too, the so-called second Nequia, when the suitors have all been killed and they arrive in the underworld, you have another scene like that, and I think it's Agamemnon. After the suitors explain what happened, Agamemnon says, well, oh, fortunate Odysseus.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, other things in these lines that I'm missing. Are we out of time yet?
Yeah. Maybe just 2 more minutes. If we had anything else we'd like to point out about these lines.
Well, let's see. I
mean, I think the kind of
interesting line, isn't it? With ἀτρεΐδαο, finding at the Caesura, and thysis essetai is a kind of interesting play on words. That's the formula that you have elsewhere too. Stuff like that.
Oh. Yeah.
But you have thysis at the beginning there, and apetisa or apetesa at the end, right? Another little ring. That's 40 and 43, right?
Yeah. Sorry, in 43 it's 1, 2, 3.
Thysis essetai, there will be thysis.
And
he got apetisa.
Yeah.
And again.
Right.
Compound,
right. Yep, the warning and the outcome.
Been carried out.
Right.
So it all goes to show that the gods did the right thing by him, but he screwed up. That's another aspect of it, right?
What? Sorry?
Another big part of this is to say we told this guy, we told him he was gonna get punished for it. Okay, if he played with Clytemnestra, and he did, right?
Yes.
So even though he was warned, he didn't pay attention.
Yes. Well, just to draw attention to one other thing, and that's the line that hopot an hebe se tikahesi merite ies. This desiring his land, when he would grow up and have a longing for his homeland. Well, this is the story of Orszástes, right? That he's sent away and he's raised in Phocis, I guess it is, and then he comes back and has his revenge. But the notion of wanting his country, so he's lost his country. This is the other part of Aegisthus, killing Agamemnon and marrying Clytemnestra. That makes him king, right? So it's now his country. And Orestes wants it back again. So that's also an issue for Telemachus. He's about to lose his country, not in quite the same way. Well, okay. So there are lots of parallels.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I think this has been a very helpful conversation in terms of both the poetics and the themes that you're pointing out that are going to reach forward into other books. So I really appreciate the time you've taken to read this with us. And so I hope people keep joining us for future videos. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia.